Test 1, 2.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening and welcome to a stormy night in April, but it will get better, I'm sure. We'll call this meeting to order, and I guess the first item will have a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. First item up then is the confirmation of the agenda. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Vink moves that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rose, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda? All right, moving on. The consent agenda is here. There are 6 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there anybody would like clarified or pulled and dealt with separately? And I'm saying that because I'm wondering, it was kind of referred back, the Perth South resolution with regards to catch and release. And I didn't know whether anybody wanted to support that or not. Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, I'll like to pull that out again and discuss it.
Anything else? Okay, so motion is then that we accept the consent agenda, items 4, 1, 4, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Duck, seconded by Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed? If any, that's carried. Okay, item number 4.4, the resolution with regards to catch and release. Do you want to talk a bit about it, Cheryl, first, and then maybe we can ask Steve for a bit of fill-in as well. Sorry.
I was actually just going to get Steve to reiterate what the police services had discussed about it.
Just the things that we spoke about at the last meeting. I don't have that up in front of me, but Police Services Board did get a report, which I gave at the last council meeting from the acting inspector, Burrows, and it listed off a few reasons of why the numbers may appear higher than what they were in the past. They weren't really, the OPP wasn't really giving an opinion on it. It was just stating some of the reasons for why those figures may appear higher than what they have been in the past.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So what's your wishes on this resolution? Do you want to support it, or we just leave it as is?
Could you clarify one more time what exactly catch and release means?
Yeah, it's basically about repeat offenders. So someone that's been caught, released, and then they're caught again for the same thing. But it's often because they're on probation or they're being watched, and they're getting caught. I want to say more often than they maybe were years ago. But it's about repeat offending.
Sure.
So I'm taking it that our police services don't have a concern with this, that they would support this or they wouldn't support it.
Can't speak for Police Services Board on my own, but it's not that we aren't concerned with it. I think everybody is concerned with it, whether you're on a board or not. I think it's a concern for all. Just saying, I'm not so sure there's anything that we can do any different than what we are.
Okay, any further discussion on that? So maybe need some help from Dan here. Basically what we'll do, we're not going to endorse it or we're not going to do anything with it. I think we just leave it as is, right? So how do we do that in the consent agenda? Sorry.
Thank you. Council could just accept it as information like all the other items in the consent agenda. If council wishes to endorse it and direct administration to move forward with relaying the support for the city of Sarnia, we're happy to do that as well.
Dean, go ahead.
Through you, your worship, I would like to make a motion to endorse Sarnia and Perth South in this resolution.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Tam? Okay, any further discussion? All right, you've heard the motion. It's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So the next item then is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment. So we need a motion that we adjourn at 7:10 for the purpose of a public meeting pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Harold. All those in favor? That is carried. So the public meeting is called to order at 7:11 p.m. The public meeting is being held in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest by any member of council? At this time, I'll ask Clerk Hobson for the purpose of the public meeting. Oh, sorry.
The purpose of this public meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth is to review the application for a proposed amendment to Bylaw 100-1998, the zoning bylaw of the Municipality of West Perth, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the application. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendations and information received at this public meeting, an amending zoning bylaw will be presented for approval during the regular council meeting later this evening. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on the application, they are to provide their name and mailing address and email to me this evening via email at clerk@westperth.com. A person or public body may appeal a decision if they have made an oral submission at this public meeting or a written submission to council prior to the passing of the bylaw. Notice was given by mail to all landowners within 120 meters of the land affected by the proposed amending bylaw and to those agencies as prescribed by regulation. A sign advertising tonight's meeting was posted on the property on March 30th, 2022. Correspondence received following the posting of the notice will be presented by planner Susanna Reed.
Okay, thanks, Dan. The zoning bylaw amendment application was initiated by Doug Rome on behalf of Tom and Marilyn Reedy and affects property described as concession 12, part of lot 14 of the Logan Ward in the municipality of West Perth. 911 number 5945 on line 49. I will now call upon Susanna Reed, planner for the municipality of West Perth, to review the application. Susanna?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a zoning bylaw amendment for consent as a condition of consent file B04 of 22. The applicants are Tom and Marilyn Reedy. And you'll be familiar with this application because council recently considered the consent application for the West resident severance. So I'll just show you the location of the property. This is the location of the Reedy Farm, which is south of Moncton on the east side of Highway 23. And the application is to change the So the yellow here outlines the surplus residence severance, and the red outlines the farm parcel, the retained land. And you can see on this map that the rezoning applies both to the severed piece and to the retained land. So the intention of the severance or the rezoning application is to change the zoning for the severed parcel from A, which is the agricultural zone, to A-1, to recognize a house that is a non-farm residence, not accessory to an agricultural operation, and then to change the farm to an A-3, from an agricultural zone to an A-3, to restrict the construction of a residence. The severed parcel is just a bit less than an acre, and the retained parcel, the farmland, is about 62 acres. We haven't received any comments as a result of the circulation of the notice of application. And I'll just note a correction. The date that the notice was circulated in the report is listed as tonight, which of course is wrong. It was circulated on March 30th. So I'm not aware of any comments from the public, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. So at this time, we will ask if there's anybody in support of the application, and I'm not aware that anybody is online to speak to this, and there's certainly nobody in the room tonight. And I don't believe there's anybody online in opposition to this application as well. And I don't believe that the applicant or their agent is online as well. So looking at Levitsa here, but no, nobody's online. That was my understanding. Is there anybody on council that has any questions with regards to this? Okay, seeing no concerns, I would like to thank those for participating tonight and for their comments. Should council proceed with the adoption of the zoning bylaw amendment, the notice of passing will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act in a 20-day appeal period to the Ontario Land Tribunal. At this time, I have a resolution that Council of the Municipality of West Perth now closes this public meeting at 7:16 and reconvenes to a regular council meeting. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Rose and Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Opposed? If any, that is carried. Thank you. So carrying on with our meeting, the next item is the consideration of the Murphy Municipal Drain, and this report is compiled by Bill Dietrich, and I believe that Bill is going to be online here somewhere. There, I see him in the bottom corner here. So Bill, you're available and you want to turn your video on, that would be great. And if not, we'll listen to what you have to say.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mayor McKenzie. First of all, can everybody hear me? I am connected? Okay, thumbs up. The purpose of this meeting this evening is to consider the drainage report that Dietrich Engineering Limited has prepared on the Murphy Municipal Drain. And I'll just take a few minutes just to review the scope of this project. And that the purpose and the only things that the council can deal with tonight is the technical aspects of the report. So those are the ones I'll review very quickly. These reports have been circulated to all the landowners and to members of council. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the details. Just a bit of background information though. Our original appointment was under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. We had an on-site meeting was held after the final design was completed and cost estimating was done. The preliminary information was mailed out to all the landowners on the drain. This was back in March of this year. After receiving any comments from the landowners, we prepared the final report, which is before you this evening. The original draining system was the Murphy Drain was installed back in 1969 under a report prepared by Archibald, Gray, and McKay. There has been some improvements to the drainage system in 82 and 2006 under two previous drain reports. Our report, we've got the work you'll see in the report separated under four different parts. We have the main drain enclosure, which is going to be filling in a section of the open channel on the Milady property. And then the second part of the project, we're upgrading the main drain closed section on Kevin Milady's farm and a new road crossing. And then we also had a request to replace the 1969 drains that were installed under branches A and B of that report. So just to quickly summarize the enclosure portion, it is, as I mentioned earlier, on the Brent and Alex Milady property in the west part of lot 26 of concession 3. And there we're proposing to close in 220 meters of the open ditch with a 750 millimeter tile drainage system. There's also 175 meters of the ditch downstream will be cleaned out. We have made application to the Fisheries and Oceans and to the Conservation Authority for permits. The municipality has received back from the DFO a letter of advice and outlining that a full authorization under the Fisheries Act was not required. Still waiting for the permit from the Asal Bayfield Conservation Authority. The total estimated cost for this part of the project is $62,800. And there's a schedule of assessment in the report outlining the sharing of the cost for that portion of the project. The second part is the main drain closed, and we're upgrading and replacing the 1969 drain through the Kevin Milady property with a new road crossing to be installed under Road 182. The new drain will consist of a 525 millimeter tile, and it'll parallel the drainage system that was put in 2006. We've estimated that work at $63,100. And upstream of the road, then branch A is being replaced with a new drain. It's again, this is a tile system. It's going to be 958 meters of 400 millimeter to 525 millimeter pipe installed, and again, it'll replace the 69 drain through the Menhir and the DeWitt farms. We've estimated that work at $127,200. And the final part of the project is the construction of branch B, which will replace the old drain, and we've estimated that at $55,600. It'll consist of a 400 millimeter tile, and also a new road crossing will be installed by the jack and bore method across line 32. And these costs that I've outlined here, those include those are our total estimated costs for the work, which includes the construction costs, the allowances that'll be paid out to the landowners for right of way and damages to crops, and the administration costs. That's kind of very briefly an outline of the work that's being planned here. And if there's any questions from council or any landowners regarding the work that's being proposed, I'll be pleased to answer those.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. So at this time, I would ask if there's any landowners, and I don't believe there are any online, but is there any questions from members of council with regards to this drain? Doug?
Bill, the difference in cost going across 182, you're going to bore. It's a gravel. 34 is obviously paved, or 32, you're going across is paved. But what's the difference in cost boring under 182? Like our $80,000 on this project is 40% of what we allotted in our budget this year for drainage work. We only put 200,000 in. This one project is taking 80. So we'll have to stop people at the end of the year because we're going to run out of money. What's the difference in cost?
The boring, I haven't actually. If we look at the breakdown of the cost for the work on the side road, where that's a gravel road, we're going to be open cutting that one, versus jacking boring the line 32. There is a breakdown of the construction costs in the report, and the open cutting the road on Road 182, we've estimated that at, and this doesn't include there is catch basins being installed and required on both sides of the road there as well. But to buy the pipe was $2,200. Install it, we've estimated $12,000. Where the boring costs are very similar but we got a smaller pipe too. We're only dealing with a 400 millimeter casing at the under the road at the top end. But so there is some additional cost for boring, but basically, yeah, the big costs is the installation of the pipe, whether you're boring it or you got to open cut the road and put it back. It's and again, these are our estimated costs. We'll see what the final costs are when we go to tender it. But yeah, boring typically does cost a little more than open cutting the road.
I think our road superintendent or operations manager kind of prefers us to bore across paved roads rather than digging them up. So I don't think you'll get an argument from him. Any other questions from council on this one? Okay. Thanks, Bill, for your explanation. Very good. Very good. So if there are no further questions, we have a motion here that we accept the report from Dietrich Engineering Limited dated March the 22nd for the Murphy Municipal Drain. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Vink, and a seconder, Councillor Duck. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So thank you very much, Bill. Oh, Ryan, go ahead. Or not Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to advise council and the public if anyone's not familiar with the process. And Bill, if I'm wrong, feel free to advise. But next step basically is council will consider a provisional bylaw later on at this meeting. And then following that, we'll have quarter revision, which will deal specifically with the assessment schedule. And then that may amend that provisional bylaw that council will look at later this evening. So that's kind of the next steps.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. Notices will go out with the circulation of the provisional bylaw for the quarter revision, and then members will have to be appointed for the court and deal with if there are any appeals on assessment. But yeah, and once the appeal periods are up, then the bylaw has been given third reading, the final contract can be awarded. In the meantime, we'll work towards preparing the tender documents for the municipality and get them ready.
Councillor Vink.
I was just going to suggest if the tenders could be ready at the same time.
Yeah, they certainly could be. Yeah, we can have them ready for the quarter revision.
So my question was along the same line. Do we have a date for the quarter revision?
We have a tentative one. May 16th is tentatively what we're working with Bill right now. We're still finalizing that, but that's what we're looking at.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, that date will work for myself, so that would be fine. Yeah, typically you've got to wait a minimum of 20 days or no more than 30 for when you mail out the provisional bylaw before you can hold the court. So that date would fit into that time slot.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Next item on our is the Chief Building Official's March Permit Summary Report. So, Bob, if you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the month of March, we had 25 building permits issued with just over $5.8 million in construction value and 4 zoning certificates issued in the month. Permits are listed. You'll note there's 6 new residences, and that's still a pretty steady source of business for the department. We're seeing an upthrust in some agricultural permits, especially in the hog industry.
Okay, questions for Bob? Doug?
Hey, Bob, there's 5 new rural houses there, which is great to see. How many of them are new and how many were the old houses tore down and rebuilt?
Two of them are in the Hagee development in Broadhagen, Deputy Mayor. I'd have to go back and check the other 4, but I think the Rice Bob Rice's son, that's a new one. I think there may be only one replacement in this list here.
Okay, other questions for Bob at this time? Okay, don't see anything else, Bob?
The second part of my report, Your Worship, is the first quarter statistics comparison from this year and the previous 3 years. Permit numbers are pretty consistent. Construction value is consistent. Residential starts are right in the middle. Looks like it's going to be another busy year.
Is there anything, Bob, you want to highlight in that?
It's still residential and agricultural. That is, we do have a lot of residential development. We have some the Avco application, site plan application has been dropped on us. It'll be coming to council shortly. Birchall's has been completed. They're going to start construction shortly. There's 2 or 3 others that are very close to coming. Thames Avenue, we have it ready for circulation. So there'll be the 2 sets of row houses on that for the Culligan development. It's going to be a very busy summer.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Any other questions? Okay, if not, that's it for your report, Bob.
Yes, it is.
Okay, the recommendation here is that Municipality of West Perth accepts the March permit summary report for information. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Vink. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, next up is Recreation Facilities and Parks Manager, Darcy. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and Council. My first report is the Optimus Club Accessible Playground Report. You'll remember me bringing one last year. It is more of a housekeeping report. It is Optimus Club money that is kept in a reserve account. So the recommendations is to move the money that came in from donations into that reserve account, and then get permission to move the amount of money that we need to do the final phase of the Optimus Club project from their funds to pay for it. So that's the general, and I kind of provided a background in the report, and I'll gladly take any questions.
Any questions for Darcy on that report that was in our package? I don't see anybody putting their hand up. So we have a fairly lengthy resolution here. And it is that the Municipality of West Perth authorizes the transfer of the 2021 donations received from October 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 in the amount of $14,025 into the Lions Playground 2019 plus reserve, adjusted for interest, accrued, and actual costs of the benches as of December 31st, 2021, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth authorizes the transfer of the 2022 donations received as of March 31st, 2022 in the amount of $9,050.96 into the Lions Playground 2019 plus reserve, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth approves the capital project for the Optimus Club sign and additional play panels in the amount of $26,000 to be funded from the Lions Playground 2019 plus reserve. Do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay, the next report then, Darcy, is the Keterson Park Pavilion report.
Yes, the Keterson Park Pavilion report. I outlined the background in my report on as far as when the Rec Master Plan in 2016 showed the need for the Keterson Park Master Plan. We started the Keterson Park Master Plan Committee, and one of the key priorities was the Keterson Park Pavilion. In October of 2019, we applied for the ISIB grant with the conceptual drawings and plans for the pavilion. We did not find out until July of 2021 officially that we were approved for the grant. From then, we reconvened the working group with council members and did the final design for the pavilion, and then we tendered it in March. And obviously, the results aren't where we want. And as I stated in my report, this is just a report to let you know what has happened and where we are at. We do plan to work as staff and with the engineer to find options on rescoping. We did go to the ISIP group and ask if there'd be any chance of changing the funding due to the costs being COVID related, but unfortunately the funding is all tapped out and there's no option there. They did note if we did rescope the project, any rescoping would have to be approved by ISIP to still receive the grant funding. So that's where we're at right now, and we do plan to come back with options for council on as far as how to proceed. We're not there yet. We are working with all the engineering to try to find some plans and some areas that we can do that, but we will come back with that. But I just wanted to get this report in front of you guys so you knew where we were at.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. So this is kind of, as Darcy's indicated, a work in progress. And they will be coming back, and that is why the recommendation is probably written the way it is, that we accept it as information at this time. And as Darcy said, they're working with the Nelson Dolly, the engineer, and I believe they're working with the successful tender as well to see where there's some possible cost savings. So unless somebody has some dying questions at this time before we get the final report, whenever that happens, I would ask for a mover and seconder. But Mike, you had your hand up.
Just a question on the timeline of the grants. When do they become in jeopardy?
So right now they gave us an extension until I believe it's either 2025 or 2026 that the project has to be complete. We do have to do a progress report that's actually due by the end of the week, just to let them know where we're at and what we're thinking. So I will give them a progress report as far as how we've done, and it'll be an estimated completion date, and we'll be pushing that off. And I don't foresee that being an approval issue because they have gave us the extension, but that's where it's at. So I don't think we're in dire need of needing to finish it by the end of the year anymore or anything like that.
Councillor Wright, or Deputy Mayor Wright, sorry.
Darcy, this was the first time that I believe a tender of this magnitude was put out without coming to council. By behold, when I leaned on the counter at Dom's at the Good Roads Convention and asked him why it was so high, I immediately phoned Jeff and asked him to give me a set of the tender drawings. It is quite a building, an 80 by 100 pad, and then an industrial kitchen in a food booth. I personally think as a deputy mayor, I dropped the ball because I didn't realize what the magnitude of this project was. I talked to Dom 3 times. I've sat at home looking at the plan. My personal opinion is that is I didn't follow this up enough. The building's as big as our fire hall. So I think we really need to go back. And I know it's the public's, and maybe downsize more than just a little bit. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And yeah, the full drawings did not come back to council, and I don't know what the procedures have been in the past, but we did not. We did have the building working group that had council members on it. One of the things that with especially the size of it, that was one of the selling points to ISIP. Was that we could put a basketball court size underneath it so kids could play basketball. It was a multi-use pavilion, and I really do feel that when we designed it and applied to ISIP at the $1.3 million mark, that's where it was, and that's why we got approved for the $800,000. I do feel that was in 2019, and just prices have changed on everything, and that 1.3 is now 1.9. So that's where we're at with it.
Does Jeff want to say a few words? Nope. Done a fairly good job of explaining where we're at, and the members that were on the building committee and sought input from the member groups that were also part of the initial group know what they were kind of looking for, and that was what was incorporated. So I think at this time we will have to go back and see what will fly and maybe what won't fly, and see what we can come back in at. So I think that's about where we're at. So the motion that I read is still standing here, that we accept it, the tender results report as information, and expecting a further report to come back. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Vink and Councillor Matheson. Last call. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. The next item then is the treasurer's report, and it's with regards to the fire truck financing. Wendy, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. The report before you is for the financing of the fire truck, just based off of the report back in April, and my understanding was the intent was to finance, and so just doing some housekeeping and putting that direction in motion. One thing to note, we have changed the motion slightly, just added a portion so that the extra tanker will be part of the next development study. So we're just recognizing that for growth, that perhaps in the future that this truck could receive funds from development charges. If there's any questions on the report, I gladly answer them.
One question, Wendy, is that we do have to zoom in on an application for how many years, right?
Yeah, so I did some extra investigating as far as like what kind of financing we can look at, and Infrastructure Ontario obviously gives us the best rate. It is a fixed rate, a variable option. I think knowing where the interest rates are going to go, if we went the bank route, our variable rate in the next number of years will change drastically versus what Infrastructure Ontario can give us. However, with the bank, it doesn't have to be necessarily a closed loan. So anyway, I do have some information on that if council would like to pursue that versus something from Infrastructure Ontario.
Councillor Bink?
I was wondering what you guys thought about financing it over a 5-year period. So that's the lowest amount of interest that we would pay. And then we can right away get back to saving for the next fire truck that's in line coming up. So then rather than stretching it over 25 years, paying more interest, we can finance it over 5, get it paid for, and then start saving for the next one, was my thoughts.
Comments, Wendy?
I'm in full support of that. Definitely when I saw the interest in the total value of the truck, financing it over 25 years is an extra cost of almost 200,000 for a truck that's 375, we'll round up. So yeah, definitely I'm open to financing it over a shorter term. We could also look at drawing it from reserves. The issue with when I did that, the model showed that in the one truck, sorry, I don't have the report exactly in front of me right now, but it would be shortfall, that ladder truck, and I think it was 2034, we'd be short just slightly. So we could look at modeling that once we have a better understanding of all of our assets. So.
Councillor Duck.
I'd just like to support what Nicholas said. I'm just looking at the report here, and it looks like even if we went for 5 years, we're paying an additional almost $36,000 in interest. So I personally think that the 5-year option would probably be a best bet too, and I'd just like to support what he said.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Any other comments? Murray?
I was just also going to support Nicholas's idea.
Okay, any further comments? Councillor
Through you, your worship, I had a question for Wendy. Wendy, if we did use some money from reserves to offset the financing costs, what would be the maximum amount that you would recommend in that regard?
Sure. So when I modeled it, we're short $225,000 in 2034, and to me, it's far enough out that if we're committed to the annual requirement, I would be comfortable funding it through reserves. If you don't mind, I could share my screen and show you that model, and then you could see kind of that commitment of 131,000 annually. I think shows favorable in drawing reserves to fund the truck itself. Do you want me to share my screen?
Go ahead and share it, Wendy. That's fine.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. It's kind of small, but I can see it.
Oh, here, let me, oops, going the wrong way. Is that better?
Good.
Okay, so this might be a little small, but here's all the trucks. There's 6 in total. And so in the report, it talks about the historical value of the truck as being, all the whole fleet as being 2 million. We're estimating the replacement at let's say 2 million. And so if we did based just on an amortization schedule, that's where we come up with the $131,000 requirement for making sure that we have enough funds on an annual basis to replace the fleet. So this model here is financing it through a loan. And here, if we continue with the 131,000, we definitely have enough funds all the way through the 25-year commitment. But then we're paying an extra 200,000, or we're just paying extra in interest. So model 2 is funding it 100% out of reserve. It draws it quite low, but we're not buying any trucks until 2028. And so that leaves us about $800,000 in the reserve before we have to buy another truck. Now, with these figures, we don't have the crystal ball as to knowing how much they're going to cost. So I would say if there's a commitment for the annual requirement, I think it's okay to use reserves. If the annual requirement is too much, then I would recommend doing a financing option. And let me just stop sharing my screen here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. So I guess my thought to council is, what are your thoughts or feelings about kind of doing a split, part financing, part reserves? I'm thinking a 50-50 split, but I'd like to hear what other people think.
Okay, you've heard Dean's question. Any comments from any members of council?
I feel it'd be okay to, as Dean said, to go 50-50 as long as we are very committed to putting the money back, because I really have an issue when we start using reserves and don't replenish them, because as we found out this last year or so, things happen, and it's always nice to have some money in your back pocket. That's my only concern.
There was a time and a place years ago when we were buying fire trucks that we would set money aside, and we always had the money up front for the fire truck when we bought it. But fire trucks were a lot cheaper then, and money was maybe just a little easier to put away. But that kind of, was the way that we used to budget for fire trucks. And I'm a little hesitant about going into reserves for something like this, as we, I know we have reserves, and that's what they're for, is for a rainy day. And as we found out this year, we had to use them, but I'm just a little reluctant to dive into them. Anybody else?
Wendy, so it's going to cost us $131,000 a year for the next 25 years, is what that chart said. I could hardly see it. So if we do Nicholas's plan at, how much was yours, Nicholas? 5 years is 91,000, 92. Yeah, 612s is 75. So if we pay it all off in 5 years, we still have to put another $65,000 a year away in reserves to keep us going to 2046, correct? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the model requires 131,000 in today's dollars. So as time goes and as the price of the trucks become more apparent, that 131, my estimation would go up based on inflation. But because we don't have that crystal ball, if you were to split it, it would help balance it out. In talking with Bill Hunter, this truck was an addition to the fleet. So there was no funds set aside in the reserve for this truck. It was purchased as an addition to the fleet. So this will be the first year that it's actually coming into that annual requirement. But yeah, 131,000 is kind of the commitment to make sure that the trucks are funded during their replacement.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Nicholas, go ahead.
And then, as we know, we're under pressure still for the next couple years trying to catch up to the levy demand that we have. And so whether it's half or financed or all, it would be a good bridge to get us there, because I don't think we can quite commit to that 131 already next year, because we still have to catch up with that levy, that $10.5 million levy that we're trying to catch up to. So to do both to catch up to that and have that $131,000 commitment might be a little bit tough. I think, where if we finance it, some or all of it, we can bridge that up to that commitment that we made over the next few years to catch up on the levy.
Anybody else? Dean.
Through you, your worship. No, I'm fine with that, Nicholas. I was just trying to explore what the alternative means would be if we paid some of the money down and financed the rest later. But no, your point's well taken, and I wasn't suggesting that we deplete the reserves in face of our other issues that you pointed out. I just wanted to see if there was any latitude in using any of the reserve money that we have currently. But otherwise, your suggestion on the 5-year financing plan, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, all done? Okay, I have a resolution here, and I think it's what we want. And if it isn't, just tell me. And I've plunked 5 years in the blank spot that we had there. So I'll read the motion and see if we get a mover and seconder, and if not, we can tweak it and go from there. So The motion that I have here is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth directs the treasurer to set up the purchase of the Rosenbauer tanker as unfinanced capital in 2021, and that the council instructs the treasurer to proceed with the Infrastructure Ontario loan application for 5 years in the amount of $374,985.60, and that the reserve funds for the fire department be consolidated into one fire capital reserve for the replacement of capital, and that the council approves the recovery of a portion or all of the costs associated with additional fire tanker 96, which is the new one we bought, through the collection of development charges. So that's our motion. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose and Councillor Jankowski. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it for Wendy. Moving on then, corporate use of resources during election policy, and Dan's going to update us on that one, I guess. Oops, sorry.
Just for me. Thank you, Worship. Good evening, Council. Before Council today is a draft corporate use of resources during an election policy. It's a new policy we're bringing forward. It is a policy that's required by the Elections Act, and we're open to any comments or feedback from council on it, but pretty straightforward, I think, whereas, you know, the municipality is not going to provide any corporate resources towards any one campaign during an election. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Any questions for Dan? If not, I have a recommendation here. And it is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth approves policy 01/2022, the corporate use of resources during an election policy. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Matheson, Councillor Vink. Question, Deputy Mayor Wright.
Dan, just perhaps I'm walking down the sidewalk and meet a person and talk to them. That's municipal property. Could you kind of define what you consider municipal property? Walking across the street, I say, hey, how you doing? Vote for me. It'll lighten the load up a little bit here.
No, that's fine. Can you just point to the section for me? I mean, I think that we can define it if council wishes, but we're looking more towards municipal facilities. In the report or in the policy, Doug? Sorry. Oh, okay. No, so sorry. In the policy, unless you find otherwise, I believe it speaks. The language used is owned facility. So where you're talking for property is just in the analysis of the report.
Okay. Duly moved and seconded. Any further questions? All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. The next is a report from the CAO, and it's with regards to the hayfield rental for 2022. Jeff?
Good evening, everyone. I'll try to follow that report. I'll get ready for a question from Deputy Mayor Ike. So you've seen this tender before. We continue to put this tender out in 1-year increments as we're working towards trying to resolve our servicing strategy jointly with Cargill Limited. We are continuing to just go 1 year at a time. If any of you had a look at the report or took a look at the website, the bids and tenders website, you'll see the map with the hay mixture. It's not the greatest hay, but it's good hay. And we want to continue with hay because it's the best thing to keep the weeds down and it's low maintenance. So just for a reminder for council why we're renting a hayfield, that's why we're doing it. Again, we posted the dates that we posted in the Mitchell Advocate were listed. We had a number of packages picked up. We had 3 submissions received, and the submission that yields the best return for the municipality is the submission from Saddle Up Stables. And so staff are recommending that we go with that submission.
Okay, I'll read the motion here, and we'll get a mover and seconder, and if there's any questions, we can address them at that time. So the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth awards the rental of 9.7 hectares, 24 acres of municipally owned agricultural land described as part of Lot 22, Concession 1, the former Fullerton Township, located north of Frank Street, to the highest bid submission received from Saddle Up Stables in the amount of $2,880 plus HST, and that the mayor and the clerk are authorized to sign all necessary documents to enter into the rental agreement. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Harold and Councillor Bell. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Okay, the next report is the Enterprise Fleet Management Services report. Jeff, you're going to talk to us about that one as well.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. If I can just ask the Deputy Clerk to promote Christopher Lockhart from Enterprise in case there's any questions that we'll ask for Chris's help. Chris kindly agreed that he would be available tonight. I'll provide a quick update. So we've really, it's a bit of an unusual report because I had a lot of questions and answers, but the plan with this report was to certainly bring it to council so that council had an opportunity to consider the option. We wanted to get some give council a meaningful opportunity for input. We got lots of input. We followed up with Christopher and got answers to a number of questions. And I'll only summarize by saying I did my best to capture the questions. And if you had a question I didn't catch in there, I apologize. We can try to answer it again. I will mention that this is a unique leasing arrangement because it's an open-ended commercial operating lease. And the way the lease works is the vehicles are plated and registered to West Perth. And I know myself personally, I'm a buyer, not a leaser. And the municipality has functioned very much as a buyer and not a leaser, but there are times when leasing makes sense, and anyone who's in sort of business, often leasing, when you consider leasing versus buying, you can run into scenarios where leasing makes more sense. The gist of this analysis is that for us in the past, being buyer has made sense. The market has kind of shifted somewhat, and it's looking more and more like this this open-ended commercial lease makes more sense for us now, and we're recommending approval. The last little piece I want to add before I ask the mayor to open it up for questions for myself or Christopher would be that I contacted references, and I ended up speaking to 2. Tilsonburg is only very recently signed on to the program, and their experience with, they actually committed to taking the program last June, but because of their own delays and not because of Enterprise's delays, they're only starting to order vehicles now. So they don't have metrics to report back, but are very pleased with the customer service and very pleased with the arrangement. The second municipality I spoke to was Clearview, and Clearview signed up for the program just before COVID, and really very interesting conversation with Clearview because we're very similar. About 20 vehicles brought into the fleet. Operations manager, even though there's vehicles for other departments, the operations manager is kind of left with looking after all this, and that creates a lot of paperwork for the operations manager. And so the Clearview experience is very positive. They're very happy with the way the service has gone. Some of the things that we talked about here were, for example, who takes care of putting on the graphics. In the case of Clearview, at this point in time, they're still doing the graphics, although they realized that Enterprise could do that for them. They just haven't moved to that because they had a supply of graphics, and they're kind of transitioning the way they handle equipment over to enterprise. So very similar fleet. They came from a very similar history where they ran vehicles for 12 to 15 years. They found that they had high expenses in those last 5 to 7 or 8 years. They were starting to worry about that cost expenditure and did the analysis and were quite satisfied to make the changeover. And the thing that we certainly hope for and Clearview confirmed is that procurement for municipalities is it's a lot of work to make sure you follow your procurement rules. And the procurement in recent years has been that because of the way the truck market is, you don't very often get your most local vendors involved in the procurement, and that kind of has the unintended consequence of landing your vehicles a fairly good distance from where your municipality is. And Clearview's experience with being able to streamline the procurement, they felt that was very, very worthwhile. They're really pleased to streamline that procurement. And I just want to say, from our perspective, the operations managers in the county have tried everything. We've tried procuring vehicles ourselves. We've tried entering into partnerships with other municipalities and increasing the numbers we procured with less success even than procuring ourselves. It's just difficult to procure in the vehicle market to begin with, and then COVID has added another whole level of difficulty. And this proposal is very favorable from the perspective of really streamlining our procurement while still meeting our procurement policy and international trade agreements, which are a requirement for us to meet. So that's the summary I want to provide about the work that we've done in the last couple of weeks. Mayor McKenzie, if you want to just see if there's any questions for Christopher, or ask if Christopher has anything he wants to add. Christopher is on the screen.
Yes, is there anything further, Chris, that you want to add at this time?
No, I think CAO Jeff summed it up very nicely. We obviously look forward to the opportunity and working with you all at the municipality of West Perth. We're seeing this being a large transition in the amount of folks working with us. We're very excited to, like Jeff mentioned, with Tilsonburg and all the other folks we're working with, exceed your expectations, not only from a financial and operational benefit to the program, but from the customer service and the onboarding. We take our partnerships very seriously, so we are really excited for the opportunity to work with you all, and I look forward to answering any questions for Jeff or myself this evening.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, I open it up for questions from members of council. Councillor Bell.
Just a quick question. Probably the one at the bottom here, lingering question about our local shops being able to do work. And in the answer it says, excuse me, that most, all shops like to work with enterprise. My question is there a fee for the local shops to be able to do the work on the enterprise vehicle? Do they have to do upgrades to their equipment? Will they have to sign up for something? Is there a cost acquired in that situation?
There is no cost. No, we use a web-based platform. It's called autointegrate.com, but there is no fee to work with us.
So follow up to that, do they have to do any internal upgrades or anything that they would need to do their equipment to work with you other than that web-based? Nothing?
No.
Thanks, Sherry. This is coming from a lady that her husband wouldn't take her snow tires off. So yeah.
I'm very glad now that he was dragging his feet on my tires.
I couldn't resist. Councillor Duck.
Thanks, everyone. First, I'd just like to say thanks to Jeff and both Chris. I know I provoked a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks about this matter, and I do appreciate you taking the time to give me the answers I do request. Chris, I just want to kind of verify one more time. I know we had a bit of an email chain going, and I just want it to be said out here in the open, because I know that was one of the biggest concerns I had was the the vendors in town and who we'd be able to use. Obviously, I'd like to see Dodge vehicles being purchased and used for the municipality because they are the brand that we do have here in town. And I understand the procurement may be an issue at times, but as long as that service is certainly going there, I know you did say they are the one vendor in town. The thing I just do want 100% confirmation of is any sort of licensed mechanic or body shop that is in West Perth and wants to work with Enterprise will be able to sign up. They'll be able to do so fairly easily and continue to work with us. I know we still have some vehicles, 2020 2020, 2021, and there's Chevy, there's Ford. So they're off make, and they're not going to be vehicles that we're trading in right away. So they still are going to need servicing. And I'm not talking about the stuff that Mike obviously does, but the brake jobs, anything mechanical. So my question is basically, with 100% certainty, any shop that is licensed that does business in West Perth that wants to continue doing business with the municipality can sign up without any issue, and they're not going to be charged any sort of fees or any of their profits are going to be taken from them as a result of working for Enterprise. And that's just what I want 100% clarity on.
Correct. Great question, Councillor Duck, and thank you so much for all the inquiries. To your question, yes, absolutely. We do not mark up any invoices, and I know you mentioned or inquired on the fact that they are licensed. Obviously, they need to be insured as well, but any licensed and insured mechanic that is willing to work with us, we're more than able to set them up. Not a problem.
Other questions? This is an interesting night. Never did I ever figure that a person that was working for Kia would support Dodge trucks. Just amazing. Ram trucks, hey? Just great. Any questions from council? Okay, if there's no further questions, the recommendation that we have here, I will read it and then we'll get a mover and seconder. So the recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth approve the proposal from Enterprise Fleet Management Canada for the leasing of light-duty vehicles, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. Do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Councillor Duck, you don't have to go overboard here, Do we have a seconder? Councillor Matheson, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, that moves us on, and thanks, Chris. That moves us on then to correspondence, and we do have a letter here from the Mitchell Coyote Slow Pitch Tournament. It was in our packet. I don't know if anybody has questions on it. I'll read the recommendation, and if we can get a mover and seconder, and then we'll find out if there's any questions, I guess. But basically, the recommendation and what they've asked for is that the Council Municipality of West Perth declares Mitchell Coyotes Slow Pitch Tournament held by Mitchell Coyotes men's slow pitch team on June the 10th to the 12th, 2022, to be of municipal significance and a community significance, and advise the Alcohol and Gaming Commission in Ontario that it has no objection to it taking place. Do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Rose and seconded by Deputy Mayor Ide. And now I'll open it up if there's any questions with regards to that. Seeing no questions, all those in favor of that motion? That is carried. Thank you. We also had correspondence from the Moncton 165 Steering Committee, and it was included in your packet there. And I'm just wondering if we would be advised, maybe if we had Steve Smith just come and as a delegation to council and just update us as to what's going on for that weekend, and just kind of keep us informed as what's going on. So if that is okay, we'll just make arrangements with Steve to come at a future meeting and give us an update. Recommendation is that then Council Municipality of West Perth accepts the correspondence as information. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Bell, Councillor Harold, all those in favor? That is carried. Council reports, the Mitchell Business Improvement Area Annual General Meeting Minutes of March the 2nd. Councillor Bell?
Nothing really to add to it unless somebody has some questions about our annual meeting. No, I think it went really well actually for another Zoom meeting. Yeah, so if there's nothing, that's all I have for that.
Oh, thank you, Sherry. Any questions for Sherry on that report? The Mitchell Business Improvement Sidewalk Patio and Cafe Policy. You wanted to talk about that?
I do, and my apologies. In my phone kerfuffle over the weekend, I do not have my BIA emails on my phone anymore because I don't know the password. So I haven't been in to see Dan to fix me up. And I had my recommendation on that phone. So my apologies as I fumble through this. Dan may have to jump in and save me here. In the past 2 years during the pandemic, we as a council have supported our downtown BIA by waiving all the patio and cafe policy fees. And I'm just wondering, or we're wondering, if just for one more summer, as we venture back into some sort of normalcy, we as a council would consider waiving the fees again, just for one more year.
Comments from anybody here? Councillor Tinkowski?
Through you, your worship, I would support that idea for 2022. Our local business need all the support that they can get at this time.
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to sort of add, thanks, Dean, that it's not permanent just for one more year. The downtown is really revitalizing, and we're planning a street party in May and a lot more downtown activities. So just sort of that one last kickover for everyone to get back to normal.
Councillor Rose?
I would second that motion.
So just to provide some clarity to council, the original motion made, it doesn't have an end date. It's in effect as long as regulation's in effect, and regulation's still in effect. So council is fine that way to continue on with this if they wish to do so. What I would identify is that the delegated authority to staff to enter into those agreements expired. So if council wishes, we can bring any permit application forward to council for council to approve, or if council wishes to pass a motion tonight to delegate authority to staff to enter into patio agreements, we'd be happy to do that and streamline and get rid of some red tape.
Okay, I don't mind getting rid of red tape. I think that would maybe be a good thing to do at this time. So if we can have a motion to that effect, if there's no issues from members of council allowing the waiving of the fees for the downtown merchants. So somebody want to make a motion to that effect, that we do that? Let staff enter into an agreement. Oh, sorry, Dean.
Yeah, through you, your worship, I would so move on that idea.
Okay, thanks, Dean. I have a seconder for that. Councillor Rowe.
Yes, I'll second that.
Deputy Mayor Wright.
Dan, they still have to apply and have the insurance and everything. That's what I just wanted to make sure, that the liability insurance is everything still has to be in place. The city of Stratford, now they charge the liquor guys, but not the cafe people. I saw they went halfway this year, but we only have one patio that ever did it, was Calhoun's. So.
Yeah, correct. The insurance requirement's still there. We're just looking at the deferral of fees and that deposit.
Okay, if there is nothing further, we had a motion from Dean and seconded by Councillor Rose that staff be allowed to basically negotiate the agreement with the downtown merchants. All those in favor of that? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Moving on then, I guess we still have a motion here to deal with that. Municipality of West Perth accepts reports from councillors as information. So do we have a mover and seconder to deal with that? Councillor Rose, Councillor Tam, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. We do have a couple bylaws here. Zoning bylaw Z 262 2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw number 100 1998 as amended for the property described as concession 12 part lot 14 in the Logan ward for the Reedy property that we had just talked about earlier tonight. And bylaw 34 is a bylaw to appoint a deputy chief building official for the purposes of enforcing the Ontario Building Code and certain bylaws for the municipality of West Perth. So there's those two bylaws. So the recommendation that I have here is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final readings to bylaw Z 262 and bylaw 34 this 19th day of April 2022. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Harold, and seconded by Councillor Bink. Any further questions on that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And we have a provisional bylaw for the Murphy Municipal Drain. We'll give it the first and second reading, and then we'll give it the third reading when we have the quarter revision. So the recommendation is that the Council Municipality of West Perth gives first and second reading to bylaw 33 this 19th day of April. Moved by Councillor Vink. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Matheson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Coming events, next council meeting is the 2nd of May. And then there's other pertinent information there as well. Council meeting again on the 16th, and then we get into June. Any notices of motion? Other business. I have one item before we get into the listed item there. Just so you know, as I think most of you are aware, the Mitchell Boys U18 hockey team won the All-Ontario, the OMHA. And so they're having a get-together, an annual banquet. I believe it's in May. And so I've talked to staff, and we're just trying to decide how we recognize their success. So that's something that we're working on. So that's just kind of for information. The next item then is the 2022 Senior of the Year Award nominations. And I know that Dean has suggested one. I was hoping that we'd maybe come up with 10 or 11 maybe. So if you have some, if you just want to put your hand up and we'll give you the floor, and we can get a list of names or just a name, whatever it is, and go from there. So. Hey, Mayor Wright.
Terry Smith has ran the Fullerton Ballpark, and I don't know if she has been before, but for the last close to 50 years, the Smith family has run that booth out there. And I think she's done other stuff in town too, but just a name that comes to mind as a senior. She wouldn't like me saying that right now. She can hear me, but I would put Terry Smith's name from Fullerton Ballpark booth.
Yeah, I do know. No, I don't think she's ever been Senior of the Year. We did award her at the Queen's Jubilee a medal when that was, well, that would have been 10 years ago. And she received a medallion for that event, but I don't think it doesn't ring a bell for Senior of the Year. Anybody else? I have a name. I'm not prioritizing it, but I had wondered about Wayne Krug and his involvement with the Optimus Club, and especially the Halloween extravaganza that they have out at Burt's. And certainly does a pile of work in the community through the Optimus Club, and certainly for that, for the Halloween. So that's another name. You can write these down, Dan, if you wish. And we got Dean's. You wanna go ahead, Dean, with yours?
Yes, Your Worship. I was wanting to nominate Pastor Nye, who's the chaplain of the West Perth Fire Department.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Do we have any others? It's nice to have a selection to choose from. Okay. How do you want to do this? Put their name in a hat, draw it out. What would you like? We can pick one.
Does council want us to pick one at random, or would council like to discuss further?
We can do it by a show of hands if you want. Is that as fair a way as any? Jeff, we're looking for some help here.
Yeah, I think you want to put one forward, so perhaps you could do a brief show of hands. We had Councillor Tam step out for a moment, but when he gets back, maybe you want to just go through, ask people to only vote for one, and select one that way. The other choice you have, if you'd rather not do it by a show of hands, we could do a random selection. So we could pick a name out of the hat and put that one forward this year, and then know that the next come back with the others. And so I think Mayor McKenzie, if you want to entertain the question about whether they'd rather us pick one out of a hat for this year, we can do that, or whether you want to vote.
We have it ready to go randomly if council wants us to just do that.
So we're going to do it randomly, random vote, and staff here is going to conduct that, and we'll have all three names there, and one will be selected. So
I'll just clarify for the record what we're doing. We've got the three names, and the staff have designed a random generator to be able to select one of those names. It's the same as picking a name out of the hat. So when you're ready, Clerk Hobson, you can tell us who the selected one is.
Pastor William Nay.
Mr. Nye, Bill Nye. Okay. Very good. Very good. So we've got that one, and that's a very good candidate, I believe. We don't have a closed session tonight, I don't believe. So unless there's any other business that somebody would like to bring forward at this time, we do have sorry, Councillor Duck.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the Mitchell Hawks as well. We won the Pollock division of the Junior C Conference. So we're starting our semifinals against Stainer. So we'd love the community support. We got tons of it this past weekend, tons of fans out, and they were loud and really supported us. So just like to continue that going as we go into that semifinal, and just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Duck. Will there be a bus going up for fans? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe it was something they were actually talking about, getting a little bit of a fan bus going. We start Friday here in Mitchell, and then we play Sunday afternoon in Stainer. So it might be a good little way of getting your Sunday afternoon going for sure. But and then we do play Thursday as well next week at home. So we're fortunate that most of the games down there are on weekends. So that would be something we're entertaining, and I can certainly keep you updated.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, the confirmatory bylaw here, bylaw 35 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth, or our meeting on April the 19th, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder for that. I'm looking around. Is there anybody that I haven't got moved or seconded tonight? I think we've got everybody. Okay. Councillor Rose had his hand up. We have a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Wright, thank you. All those in favor? This is the one that really counts. Motion to adjourn at 8:29. Moved by Councillor Tam, seconded by Councillor Duck. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.